Welcome back everyone to JFace Games. Today we are talking about two games. We are still on our journey of creating an RPG and looking at other RPGs and borrowing ideas from them and seeing what inspires us. And today we're talking about Strike! And Gubat Banwa. I might have pronounced that horribly wrong. Strike I stumbled upon because it touted itself as being very much influenced by 4E. And then Gubat Banwa came up on one of those like top 10 RPGs of 2021, and it's, I think, a Filipino-based RPG. I haven't gotten through the rules of Strike fully yet. To be honest, when it comes to the character design of 4E, I love tactical games, but I don't know how tactical I'm going to get into this game. And so Strike, I shied away from the character design a good bit, and I was looking at just the core mechanics. And it had a very interesting core mechanic. And then Gubat Banwa has really interesting character design. There's a lot going on in that game, which I think is very fascinating because I really have to spend some time digesting it. Because the words are so different in terms of, like, it doesn't just say like fighter, thief, wizard, which invokes an idea in your head immediately, because it has all of these different words or archetypes that come from Filipino culture or that sort of warrior caste culture that they had. It becomes very challenging to grasp the idea immediately. So it takes a little bit more to kind of get into for me. So Strike, let's talk about Strike real quick, and I'm just going to show these two little things here. So Strike, what was interesting is it has this D6 mechanic in essence, where you just roll a D6 on your turn, and depending on if you're skilled or something or unskilled will depend on sort of like what happens, right? Now you might be able to roll multiple D6. I literally started going through the rules. I came upon this table and I just stopped because I had to think through this a good bit, because this kind of almost reminds me of, we had a conversation recently about the idea of like succeed with consequence and tough decision, and here they have a little bit more of a language called twist with a cost, success with a cost. So there's some similarities here, but I like this idea of they didn't change the dice type, they just changed the table. So instead of having to figure out the math behind, oh, we're gonna do a D6 and maybe we'll give you a +1, or maybe we'll give you a -1, or maybe we'll use a D8 now, or we'll do advantage or disadvantage. It's like, are you skilled or unskilled? Two different charts, right? And those two different charts are pretty simple in terms of, in essence, you have more chances for a twist here, twist of the cost, and less chance to get a success with a bonus, right? You have a success or a bonus. So I thought this was kind of cool. I thought this was a nice little mechanic and something to think about for me in terms of what do I want to do with the system that we're building and working on. With Gubat Banwa, so let's gotta zoom out and make this reset. So so Strike, unskilled versus skilled dice table results, right? The only challenge there is that you'd have to have the table, unless you memorized it, you'd have to have the table on your character sheet. And so then there's the question of, does it slow it down too much, or do you learn it pretty quick and then it's just sort of like second nature? So I'm gonna put GB here. The first thing I want to say about GB that really, I just did a beta test sort of, or an alpha test with some friends just yesterday on the current iteration of the RPG we're working on the channel. And the first thing I noticed, and it made me immediately think of this game, was that Striker was pretty powerful as a dice because it was both melee and range damage. It was just damage in general. Where in this system, they specifically have 5 roles. One of those roles being like a support role. One of those roles, I wrote them down. One of those roles being a support role. One of those roles being like a melee attacking, and it was called, I forget what it's called. But they had a ranged attacking that was in essence called a marksman, right? And so they in essence had the same archetypes that I had, in terms of one was like a controlling class, one was a leadership class, one was a defender class. But then they split up in essence, Striker class into a ranged versus melee. So there was like a skirmisher versus a marksman. And that's I don't want to add more attributes necessary to the system, but that might have to happen. We might have to have marksman, because it makes a big deal. Because in essence, one of the players I was playing with, he went full striker and a little bit of control, and then one person went full defense with a little bit of striker. And it was one of those things that it almost eliminated the guy's need to move, because he could do a ranged or a melee attack, and so he just kind of sat like in one spot. And there was a lot of things that happened with that beta test that I want to kind of talk about in a different video. But to me, this, from what GB did here and having that marksman character class, really resonated with me, and thinking, okay, we might have to really do this, or explore this at least. The other thing this system did, which is really interesting, is the violence die. And I think this idea is pretty cool. And so in essence, you have this dice that's called a violence dice. And this was from someone's review, and I just took a screenshot of it. But the violence die in essence is like something bad's happening every time combat occurs. Like it's like you get into a knife fight and you expect to get cut when you're in a knife fight. You don't expect to come out unscathed. And so they kind of represent that with this violence die, being that if you just roll a d8, and either you're going to be doing a weak hit, a strong hit, a critical hit, a momentous miss, meaning you're getting some sort of favor, but the chances of actually missing altogether, not doing anything, not getting any sort of benefit or some sort of like, because I would assume when I read favor, I thought of like getting an edge, getting a little bit like something that a power source or some sort of currency that you're able to spend to do something a little bit better later. But I loved this, and the only thing they did was that if your opponent had some sort of advantage, like they had cover or something along those lines, then you couldn't roll an 8. But if you had some sort of advantage in some shape, way, or form against your opponent, you couldn't roll a 1. And that was like the main shifting mechanic. It was like, if you've got, they didn't use the word advantage, but if you have advantage, in essence, you get to reroll 1s. And if the opponent has advantage, or cover or something, then you have to reroll 8s. And that's really simple. You know, it's a really I think it's intuitive, but I think it's really simple. It's fast. You know, it's fast, and it didn't cut down on a lot of the gameplay. So I really liked that idea of the violence die. Mainly the concept of, you know, like damage and agency is always happening. You're not having just misses. You're not having, this is need for splitting ranged versus melee attacking proficiency, right? You have this agency. So that was these two games that I thought were really interesting, and they had some cool concepts. I think the next video we're going to go through what happened in that beta test, and we'll talk about it. So hit the bell, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment, and hope to talk to you guys soon.